Billionaire husband left his bride after 3 months. What she did next destroyed him. You shouldn't have come here, Thea. Sterling Wentworth's voice cut through the Chicago Four Seasons ballroom like a blade wrapped in silk. His hand trembled slightly around the microphone. 500 faces stared in frozen silence. The crystal chandeliers overhead cast prismatic light across the crowd. Venture capitalists in custom suits, tech moguls with billion-dollar empires, society columnists clutching their phones, politicians who'd built careers on carefully crafted images, all of them watching as a marriage died in real time. Thea Calloway stood 15 feet from the stage. Her emerald silk gown caught the spotlight, as if the universe itself had decided she deserved to be seen. To anyone watching, she looked serene, shoulders back, chin level, hands loose at her sides. But inside, her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Behind Sterling, a massive banner still proclaimed the evening's theme: Visionary Leadership in Sustainable Technology. The words glowed in elegant script, but the meaning of visionary was about to change forever. I stayed quiet for 3 months, Thea said. Her voice was steady enough to carry to the back rows without a microphone. Tonight, silence ends. She lifted the small remote in her hand. One click. The massive screens flanking the stage flickered to life. The first image appeared. Sterling and a woman with honey-colored hair, laughing in what looked like a private villa. White walls, azure water in the background. Santorini, maybe. His hand rested possessively on her waist. Her lips brushed his jaw. The date stamp in the corner glowed like an accusation. 4 weeks after his wedding. The collective gasp that swept through the ballroom sounded like wind through winter trees. Sterling's practiced smile cracked down the middle. Thea, he said slowly, lowering the microphone. His voice carried a warning, or maybe it was pleading. This isn't the place. The place? Thea finished for him. Her tone remained calm, almost gentle. You're right. The place for honesty was our wedding day. But since you chose deception then, I'm choosing truth now. Another image appeared on the screens. Sterling and the same woman walking hand in hand along Chicago's Riverwalk. The cityscape behind them unmistakable. Another date stamp. 6 weeks into the marriage. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Someone near the press section whispered, "Is that his wife?" Another voice answered, "I heard they just got married this year. Spring wedding." Thea's eyes never left Sterling's face. She had spent years learning to read the micro-expressions of fashion buyers and investors. Now she watched him realize, in real time, that control had slipped through his fingers like sand. Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about what happens when you mistake someone's kindness for weakness. When you think silence means acceptance. When you believe you can build an empire on lies and never pay the price. If you've ever trusted someone completely, only to discover it was all a performance, this story is for you. If you've ever wondered if the person sleeping next to you was thinking of someone else, keep watching. If you've ever asked yourself what you would do if you discovered your entire marriage was a transaction, stay with me, because Thea Calloway is about to show you what true strength looks like. And if you believe in the power of truth over lies, hit that like button right now. Comment below where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, because you're about to witness something powerful. Let me take you back to where it all began. 6 months before this moment, before the exposure, before the fall, back to a morning when Thea still believed in fairy tales. Morning light spilled across Lake Michigan like liquid gold. The water stretched to the horizon, calm and glittering under a cloudless sky. Inside a luxury suite overlooking the lake, Thea Calloway stood before an antique mirror. Her wedding gown shimmered in the sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Layers of ivory silk and French lace, 10 feet of train pooling behind her like a waterfall frozen in fabric. Her mother stood behind her, fastening the last pearl button at the base of her neck. Each button was tiny. Each one required careful fingers. Her mother's hands moved with practiced precision, but Thea could see them trembling slightly. "You look like something out of a painting," her mother whispered. She stepped back, pressing one hand to her mouth. Tears threatened to ruin her carefully applied mascara. Thea studied her reflection. At 2008, she'd built her name in Chicago's competitive sustainable fashion world. Calloway Collective. Her brand, her vision. Her designs had graced runways in New York and Milan, She dressed senators' wives and tech CEOs, created employment programs for women in underserved communities, turned her grandmother's small textile studio into a brand that actually meant something. Beautiful, ethical, transformative. But today, standing in this gown that had taken 6 months to create, her hands trembled. "Mom," she said quietly. Her eyes met her mother's in the mirror. "Do you think grandmother would have approved of this arrangement?" Her mother's expression shifted. Still loving, but more careful now, more measured. "Your grandmother believed in practical things, strong foundations. She'd say love grows where there's respect and commitment. Respect and commitment." The words felt heavier than the 10 feet of silk train. The marriage hadn't been forced. Not exactly, but it had been orchestrated. The Callaways and the Wentworths moved in overlapping circles. Chicago's established families, the ones whose names appeared on hospital wings and museum galleries, the ones who summered in the same locations and sent their children to the same schools. When Sterling's father and Thea's uncle had suggested the match over cigars, at the Metropolitan Club, it had been presented as an ideal partnership. Sterling Wentworth, 32, Harvard MBA, founder of Wentworth Tech Solutions, specializing in sustainable energy storage. Brilliant, driven, from good stock, as her uncle had phrased it. Thea Callaway, 2008, creative, accomplished, socially conscious, the daughter who'd made her family proud by building something meaningful rather than just spending the family textile fortune. On paper, they made perfect sense. In reality, they'd only been on 7 dates before the engagement. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her father appeared in the doorway, distinguished in his morning coat, silver hair perfectly styled, emotion flickering behind his normally stoic expression. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asked. Thea drew a long breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." Her father crossed the room, offered his arm. His hand covered hers. Strong, steady, the same hand that had taught her to ride a bike, that had walked her into her first day of design school, that had cut the ribbon at her first studio opening. "Your grandmother would have been so proud today," he said quietly. Thea's throat tightened. "I hope she's watching." Her mother stepped forward, took both of Thea's hands in hers. "Listen to me. Grace and strength. No matter what comes, that's what she always said. Grace and strength. The family mantra, passed down from women who had weathered storms and built homes out of hope." Her mother's eyes held hers. "You've been ready your whole life. Love doesn't always start with fireworks, sweetheart. Sometimes it grows where there's patience." That was what Thea believed too, what she'd convinced herself to believe. Theirs was not a whirlwind romance. It was an arrangement. Practical, polished, the joining of 2 respected Michigan families. But she had told herself that love could follow if she nurtured it, if she was patient enough, kind enough, present enough. She stepped to the window, gazed at the Chicago skyline stretching toward the lake. This city was her life. Those buildings, those streets, apartment complexes she'd helped design, downtown spaces her firm had renovated. Her fingerprints were all over this city's fabric. And now it would also be her husband's city, their city. A soft breeze slipped through the half-open window. It carried sounds from below, music rehearsals, car horns, the pulse of Chicago beginning another day, life moving forward whether you were ready or not. "Let's go," her father said gently. "It's time." Thea took his arm. "Let's make it beautiful." The Fourth Presbyterian Church on Michigan Avenue had witnessed 4 generations of Callaway weddings, Gothic architecture reaching toward heaven, stained glass windows that turned sunlight into stories, stone walls that held a century of promises. Inside, the sanctuary glowed. Sunlight streamed through those famous windows, painting rainbow fragments across white orchids and pale pink roses. 300 guests filled the pews, women in designer hats, men in morning coats, families who'd known both the Callaways and Wentworths for decades. A string quartet played pachelbel. The notes floated through the vaulted space, sacred and timeless. The doors at the back of the sanctuary opened. Thea appeared on her father's arm. A collective sigh of admiration swept through the congregation. She walked down the aisle, her heartbeat loud in her ears, loud enough to drown out the music. Her eyes found Sterling at the altar. He looked exactly as a groom should, tall, composed, handsome in his Tom Ford tuxedo, dark hair perfectly styled, not a thread out of place, his expression appropriately solemn. But his eyes, there was something distant in them, something that looked less like joy and more like resignation, like a man fulfilling an obligation rather than embracing a dream. He's probably just nervous, Thea told herself. Just like me. She reached the altar. Her father lifted her veil, kissed her cheek, placed her hand in Sterling's. Sterling's hand was warm, but his grip felt somehow impersonal, like a handshake at a business closing. The ceremony unfolded with traditional precision. The minister spoke about covenant and partnership, about two becoming one, about the sacred bond of marriage transcending individual desire. Do you, Sterling Wentworth, take Thea Calloway to be your lawfully wedded wife? The minister asked. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death parts you? I do, Sterling said. His voice was steady, practiced, the voice he used in boardrooms. And do you, Thea Calloway, take Sterling Wentworth to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death parts you? I do. Thea's voice trembled slightly, but it carried. Sterling slipped the platinum band onto her finger. The ring was beautiful, simple, elegant. Exactly what she would have chosen. But the gesture felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced it. By the power vested in me, the minister proclaimed, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Sterling leaned in, kissed her briefly, appropriately. A kiss for 300 witnesses and a dozen cameras, not a kiss for a wife. The church erupted in applause. And for just a moment, as they turned to face their guests, Thea thought she saw something shift in Sterling's expression, a flicker of something that looked almost like regret. Then he smiled, placed her hand in the crook of his arm, and they walked back down the aisle together as cameras flashed and Chicago's elite beamed at this perfect union. If this story is already resonating with you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, because Mr. Hearthline Stories is all about real journeys of courage and transformation, and Thea's journey is just beginning. They spent 2 weeks in Napa Valley. Sterling's choice. He'd said he needed something calm, away from the demands of board meetings and product launches. The estate sat on a hillside surrounded by vineyards that rolled toward distant mountains. Private, secluded, beautiful in a way that felt almost unreal. For those 14 days, Thea caught glimpses of a man she could actually love. They took long walks through the vineyards at dawn. Mist still clung to the vines. The world felt newly made. Sterling talked about his work with an enthusiasm she hadn't seen during their brief courtship. He explained battery technology and carbon capture with boyish excitement that made his whole face change. The thing people don't understand, he said one morning, gesturing with his coffee cup as they sat on the terrace, is that sustainable energy isn't just about saving the planet. It's about fundamentally reimagining our relationship with resources. The sun was just clearing the mountains. Golden light spilled across the valley. Thea pulled her sweater closer against the morning chill. That's how I feel about sustainable fashion, she said. It's not charity, it's evolution. It's recognizing that the old way of doing things was extractive and unsustainable, that we can create beauty without destruction. Sterling looked at her then, really looked at her, his eyes focused in a way they hadn't been during the wedding. We might actually understand each other, he said. Something warm bloomed in Thea's chest. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of it. They cooked together in the estate's kitchen, Thea making her grandmother's pasta recipe while Sterling chopped vegetables with surprising competence. You actually know how to use a knife, she teased. He grinned. I lived alone for 6 years before this. It was either learn to cook or survive on takeout. They toured wineries, tasted reserve Cabernets in barrel rooms that smelled of oak and thyme, laughed when Thea admitted she couldn't tell the difference between the $300 bottle and the $50 one. Don't tell anyone, Sterling whispered conspiratorially. Neither can I. One night, after dinner on the terrace under a sky crowded with stars, Sterling reached across the table, took her hand. I know this wasn't exactly a conventional romance, he said quietly. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But maybe we can make it into something real. Thea's heart lifted. I'd like that. He squeezed her hand. His eyes held hers. For the first time since the wedding, she felt genuine hope. But on their last night in Napa, his phone rang during dinner. Sterling glanced at the screen. Something shuddered in his face. Closed off, like curtains being drawn. "I need to take this," he said. "Work emergency." He stepped out onto the terrace. Through the French doors, Thea could see his silhouette against the darkening sky. She tried not to eavesdrop, tried to focus on her wine, but she heard the tone of his voice change, become softer, more intimate. He laughed quietly at something the caller said, a laugh she'd never heard him use with her. When he returned 10 minutes later, the warmth from earlier had evaporated. "Everything okay?" Thea asked. "Fine. Just investor complications," but she noticed he'd angled his phone face down on the table. And when it buzzed with a text moments later, he grabbed it quickly, read it without expression, slipped it into his pocket. The rest of the evening felt cooler somehow, like a door had quietly closed between them. That night, lying in bed while Sterling showered, Thea stared at the ceiling, trying to recapture the warmth from earlier in the day, trying not to let doubt creep in. But doubt was already there, small, insidious, growing. Back in Chicago, they moved into Sterling's penthouse in the Gold Coast, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, professionally decorated in shades of gray and white. Beautiful, expensive, sterile. Thea tried to make it feel like home. She brought in plants, colorful textiles from her collection, photographs from her travels, set up a small design studio in one of the spare rooms. Sterling was polite about the changes. "Whatever makes you comfortable," he said, barely glancing up from his laptop. The first month, Thea told herself, they just needed time to adjust. Sterling was launching a new product line, some revolutionary battery component that had investors excited. He left for the office before dawn, returned after dark most days. She brought him dinner at his downtown office once, surprised him with Thai food from the place he'd mentioned liking. His assistant Rachel looked up when Thea arrived. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by something that looked like pity. "Oh," Rachel said. "He's in a meeting. It might be hours." "I can wait," Thea said. She smiled. Rachel's expression suggested that waiting was futile, but she showed Thea to a glass-walled conference room. Thea waited for 90 minutes, watching office workers stream past, watching the sun set over the lake, watching her reflection in the glass grow dimmer as the room darkened. Sterling appeared looking exhausted, faintly annoyed. "You didn't need to do this," he said. But he sat, ate mechanically. "I wanted to see you." Thea kept her voice light. "We've barely talked in days." Sterling set down his fork. "Thea, you knew what you were marrying. This company doesn't run itself. I'm not asking you to run it less. I'm asking you to look at me when we're in the same room." Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or frustration. "I'm doing the best I can." But his best felt like the bare minimum of presence. Weekends disappeared into conference calls and emergency board meetings. Social events were the only times they appeared together. Charity dinners, gallery openings. Sterling played the attentive husband perfectly, his hand resting at the small of her back, smiling for cameras, answering questions about married life with practiced charm. Then they'd get into the car afterward, and the performance would end. He'd check his phone immediately, responding to messages with faint smiles she never saw him give her. One Saturday morning, Thea woke to find his side of the bed already cold. She found him in his study, on the phone, speaking in a low voice. "I know," he was saying. "I miss you too. Soon, I promise." He looked up, saw her standing in the doorway. His expression didn't even change. "I'll call you later," he said smoothly, ending the call. "Morning. I didn't want to wake you." "Who was that?" Thea asked. "Investor in London. Time zones." The lie sat between them. Obvious. Untouchable. Thea wanted to scream, to demand the truth, to grab his phone and search it. But something in his calm expression stopped her. A kind of cold certainty that said, if you push this, you'll get an answer you can't unknow. So she didn't push. She just nodded. Went to make coffee, her hands shaking so badly she spilled grounds across the marble counter. It was Brielle who finally forced the issue. Brielle Vaughn had been Thea's best friend since their freshman year at Northwestern. The sister she'd never had. The person who knew her well enough to spot a lie at 50 paces. They met for lunch at a cafe in Wicker Park. 2 months into the marriage, Thea had been carefully keeping up appearances, posting smiling photos on social media, telling friends that married life was an adjustment, but good. Brielle took one look at her across the table. "Okay," she said. "Drop the act. What's actually happening?" Thea's carefully constructed facade crumbled. "I don't know if he even likes me, Brie." "Likes you?" Brielle's eyebrows shot up. "Thea, he married you. For the merger, the connections, the optics." Thea's voice cracked. "I thought maybe we could grow into something real, but he's never there. And when he is, he's somewhere else in his head." "Where is he?" "Work. Always work. Or so he says." "You don't believe him?" Thea pressed her palms against her eyes. "There are phone calls he won't take in front of me. Texts that make him smile in ways I've never seen. Last week I found a receipt in his coat pocket. Dinner at Alinea for 2. He told me he was at a board meeting that night." Brielle was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. "Give me 2 days. Brie, what are you going to do? Just trust me." 48 hours later, Brielle arrived at the penthouse. She carried a manila folder. Her expression made Thea's stomach drop. "You might want to sit down," Brielle said. Inside the folder were photographs. Sterling and a woman with honey blonde hair, walking along the Riverwalk, fingers intertwined, kissing in the doorway of a brownstone in Lincoln Park, sitting at an intimate table at Alinea, the same restaurant whose receipt Thea had found. The woman was beautiful, effortless, the kind of beauty that looked the same in yoga pants as in couture. "Her name is Celeste Moreau," Brielle said quietly. "She's a sustainability consultant. They met 4 years ago at a clean energy conference in Copenhagen. 4 years. Thea's voice sounded hollow. They dated for 3 years. Brielle pulled out more photos. "According to my source, and please don't ask me how I got this, they broke up about 6 months before your engagement. Or at least they were supposed to have broken up." The timeline clicked into place. Sickening. Precise. 6 months before the engagement was when Sterling's father had first suggested the marriage. When Sterling had suddenly become available. "He never stopped seeing her," Thea whispered. Brielle's hand covered hers. "I'm sorry. God, Thea, I'm so sorry. If you're feeling Thea's pain right now, let me know in the comments. Because what happens next will break your heart before it inspires you. Don't go anywhere." That night, Thea sat alone in the dark penthouse. The photographs spread across the coffee table like tarot cards spelling out her future. She heard Sterling's key in the lock around 11. He walked in, loosening his tie, and stopped when he saw her sitting in the dim light. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" he asked. Thea turned on the lamp. The photographs illuminated. Sterling went very still. "Her name is Celeste," Thea said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Too calm, too steady. "You've been with her for 4 years. He didn't deny it. Didn't scramble for explanations. He just stood there, still as stone. And that, more than anything, told her everything. Thea stood. "How long?" "Since before the wedding?" Sterling exhaled softly. "Since before the engagement." Her body went rigid. The air between them thickened. "You were already with her when you proposed to me." "It was arranged." Sterling sat down on the arm of the sofa. "You know that. My family wanted the alliance. Yours did too. I tried to end it with Celeste. I really did. When my father insisted on this marriage, I told her we couldn't continue. But," Thea's voice shook, "but I can't love you the way you deserve." The calm in his voice cut deeper than anger ever could. "You can't love me," Thea repeated, disbelief coating every syllable. "Then why marry me?" Sterling looked at her, really looked at her. "You know why. The merger between your family's textile connections and my tech applications. The investor confidence it would create. The social capital. The business opportunities. The optics." Thea laughed. A broken sound. "We're not a business deal, Sterling. We're people." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought I could make it work. I thought maybe what I felt for Celeste would fade if I just gave it time. If I committed to you. If I tried. But it hasn't. No. So what are you saying?" He finally met her eyes. I'm saying I want out. The words hung in the air. Final, as a judge's gavel. We've been married 3 months, Thea said numbly. I know. You stood in a church and made vows. I know. And you're just done? Sterling stood. Walked to the window overlooking the glittering city. I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. The penthouse. A settlement. Whatever you need. But I can't do this anymore, Thea. I can't keep living a lie. He turned to face her. I'm sorry. I really am. Her voice cracked. Don't say you're sorry. Sorry is for accidents. This was a choice. Every day. Every lie. Every time you came home smelling like her perfume. Every time you told me you were working when you were with her. Those were choices. Sterling looked down. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Thea stood. Tears falling freely now. You destroyed me. And you did it knowingly. Methodically. While I was here trying to build a life with you. Trying to be the wife you needed. Trying to convince myself that patience would win. That love would grow. She wiped her face. You were never going to love me. Because you never stopped loving her. For the first time, Sterling's composure faltered. I'm sorry, Stephanie. Don't call me that. You don't get to use my name gently. Not after this. He nodded once. Accepting the boundary. Without another word, he reached for his suitcase. Began to pack. The sound of zippers, closing drawers, fabric rustling. It filled the silence like thunder. Thea stood still, numb, watching as the man who had been her husband for only 3 months folded shirts and tucked them neatly away. Methodical, detached, like leaving was just another business trip. When he finished, he turned to her one last time. I'm sorry, Thea, he said again, voice quiet. She didn't respond, couldn't. Sterling wheeled his suitcase toward the elevator. Thea followed silently to the doorway, her bare feet cold against the marble floor. He pressed the button. The elevator chimed softly, doors sliding open with mechanical precision. The sound felt final. For a fleeting second he looked back, not with remorse, not even with guilt, but with a kind of distant pity. That was what broke her most. Goodbye, he said simply. She didn't answer. The doors began to close, cutting the space between them inch by inch, until only his reflection remained on the mirrored interior. Then he was gone. The moment the elevator's hum faded, the stillness of the apartment rushed in. Heavy, absolute. Thea stood there, morning light beginning to spill through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the tears she hadn't realized were falling. The air carried his cologne, faint, lingering, the ghost of a presence that was no longer hers. She turned back toward the living room, her eyes landing on the framed wedding photo on the console table, the one her parents had given them. She picked it up, traced her finger over the image of their smiling faces, the bouquet in her hand, the way he'd looked at her in front of hundreds. Now she saw it differently. His smile wasn't love, it was performance. Her hand trembled. The frame slipped from her fingers, shattered against the marble. The sound echoed through the empty space like an ending she hadn't agreed to. Thea sank to the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Tears spilling freely now. Memories flashing. His promises. The laughter on their honeymoon. The nights she'd stayed awake waiting for him. All of it came crashing down at once. She stayed there for a long time, letting the silence fill every corner, until even crying felt pointless. When her phone buzzed hours later, she didn't move. She didn't need to check it to know whose name would be there. Outside, the city carried on. Cars honked. People laughed. Sunlight touched the riverfront, where their first photos as husband and wife had been taken. Life didn't stop for broken hearts. Listen, I need you to do something for me right now. If you've ever felt abandoned by someone you trusted, if you've ever had your heart shattered by lies, drop a like on this video. Comment I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so Thea knows she's not alone. Because what she does next is going to inspire you. But first, she had to go through the fire. The first week after Sterling left, Thea didn't get out of bed except to use the bathroom. Days blurred together in the penthouse. Morning light became afternoon. Shadow became night, became morning again. An endless loop without meaning. She didn't answer calls. Let emails pile up in her inbox. survived on crackers and the bottles of water Brielle forced into her hands during brief worried visits. The silence of abandonment had a sound. It was the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, her own breathing. Nothing else. She'd lie there staring at the ceiling, replaying moments, searching for signs she'd missed, blaming herself for believing in something that was never real. Everyone tried to tell me, she whispered to the empty room, and I was too stupid to listen. Her phone buzzed constantly. Her mother, her father, friends from the wedding, business associates, everyone wanting to know if the rumors were true. She ignored them all. On day 5, her mother arrived, let herself in with the spare key Thea had given her months ago, found her daughter on the bathroom floor, still in the same clothes she'd been wearing for days. Oh, sweetheart. Her mother slid down next to her, pulled Thea into her arms like she was 8 years old again. I feel so stupid, Thea whispered. Everyone tried to tell me. The quick engagement, the arrangement, how little we actually knew each other, and I just believed. I believed in the fairy tale. That love could grow. That commitment meant something. Her mother's hand stroked her hair. You're not stupid for believing in goodness. That's called having faith. My faith got me abandoned after 3 months. Her mother pulled back, gripped Thea's shoulders. No, his cowardice got you freed after 3 months. There's a difference. Something in those words penetrated the fog. Listen to me. Her mother's voice was fierce now. You are Thea Calloway. You built a fashion brand from nothing. You've dressed first ladies, created jobs for hundreds of women, turned sustainability from a buzzword into a movement. You did all of that before you ever met Sterling Wentworth. He didn't make you who you are. And he cannot unmake you either. Thea let those words sink in, let them settle into the hollowed-out places in her chest. Get up, her mother said gently. Shower, put on real clothes. Then we're going to figure out what comes next. What if I don't know what comes next? Then we'll figure that out too. Slowly, incrementally, Thea began to rebuild. She returned to her studio at Calloway Collective. Her small team greeted her with careful hugs, didn't ask questions, just welcomed her back. She lost herself in fabric swatches and design sketches, in the meditative work of creating beautiful things. She started running again, pounding out her anger and grief on the lakefront trail as dawn broke over the water, mile after mile, until her lungs burned and her legs ached and the pain in her chest had somewhere to go. She joined a women's entrepreneurship group, started teaching occasional workshops on sustainable design to young creators in underserved neighborhoods, and slowly, carefully, she began to feel like herself again. Not the version of herself that had walked down the aisle full of hope. Someone different, harder in some ways, softer in others, more herself than she'd ever been. 2 months after Sterling left, Thea was at a community center in Pilsen, teaching a group of teenage girls how to use natural dyes. The girls clustered around the table, watching as she demonstrated the process. Avocado pits for soft pink, onion skins for gold, red cabbage for blue. It's like magic, one girl breathed. Thea smiled. It's like paying attention. Nature gives us everything we need. We just have to learn its language. During the break, a young man in paint-splattered jeans approached her. Maybe 30, warm brown skin, expressive eyes, a smile that made his whole face change. Thea Calloway? He asked. She looked up. That's me. I'm Dante Reyes. I run the community arts program here. He gestured around the space. I just wanted to say, what you're doing with these kids, it's incredible. The way you talk about fashion as empowerment, not just commerce. We need more of that. Something about his genuine enthusiasm made her smile. A real smile. The first in weeks. Thank you, she said. That means a lot. They talked for 20 minutes about art and community and creating opportunities. Dante had grown up in Pilsen, got a scholarship to the Art Institute, came back to pour himself into the neighborhood that raised him. There's beauty here, he said, gesturing at the murals visible through the windows. But there's also need. I figure if I can combine the two, maybe we build something that lasts. Thea found herself genuinely engaged. That's exactly how I think about sustainable fashion. It's not about charity. It's about recognizing people's dignity and capacity. Dante's eyes lit up. Exactly. People don't need saving. They need opportunities and someone willing to invest in their potential. When the workshop resumed, Thea caught herself thinking about him, about the passion in his voice, the way his hands moved when he talked, the complete absence of pretense. On the drive home, she realized something. For the first time since the separation, she'd felt something other than grief. She told herself it was too soon, that she wasn't ready, but she couldn't deny that small flutter of hope. 3 months after Sterling left, Thea's divorce attorney called with unexpected news. "I've been going through the marriage documents," Victoria Chen said, her voice carefully neutral. "And unless I'm missing something, there was never a prenuptial agreement filed." Thea frowned. "That can't be right. Sterling's lawyers had me sign." She stopped, thinking back. They'd presented documents, talked about standard procedures, but she'd never actually seen a final prenup. "Wait," she said slowly. "They said they were handling it, that it was standard, but I never saw a completed document." "Exactly," Victoria said, "which means under Illinois law, you're entitled to a significant portion of the marital assets. And since Wentworth Tech Solutions saw a major valuation increase during your marriage, that pharmaceutical battery deal they closed in month 2, you could be looking at a substantial claim." Thea sat very still. How substantial? Conservatively, 20 to 30 million. Possibly more if we push. For a long moment, Thea couldn't speak. Then she started laughing. A slightly hysterical sound. "He left me with nothing but a broken heart and didn't even protect himself financially?" "Appears that way." Victoria's tone held a hint of amusement. "I think he was so eager to exit that he just didn't think it through, or his lawyers assumed you'd sign something and drop the ball. Either way, we have leverage." Thea's mind raced. $20 million. She could expand Callaway Collective across the country, create a foundation for women entrepreneurs, build something that would outlast any marriage. "File the claim," she said quietly. "Every cent I'm entitled to." "Consider it done," Victoria said. "I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow." But as Thea hung up, another thought occurred to her. She opened her laptop, began to search. Wentworth Foundation Gala, annual celebration of sustainable innovation and leadership. The event was scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Sterling's moment in the spotlight, where Chicago's elite would gather to celebrate his vision and his contribution to a better world. The same man who'd lied to his wife for 3 months while sleeping in another woman's bed. An idea began to form. Terrible. Perfect. Inevitable. She called Brielle. "I need your help with something," Thea said. "Anything. I need evidence. Everything you can find. Photos, dates, receipts, messages if you can get them. I need to build a timeline of Sterling's relationship with Celeste during our marriage." Brielle was quiet for a beat. "Thea, what are you planning?" "The truth. I'm planning to tell the truth." "And where exactly are you planning to tell it?" Thea smiled, though it felt sharp on her face. "At his gala, in front of everyone who thinks he's a visionary. I'm going to show them exactly what kind of man he is." "Oh my God." Brielle's voice held equal parts shock and admiration. "You're going to destroy him." "No," Thea said softly. "I'm going to let his own actions speak. I'm just going to make sure they're loud enough to hear." For the next 2 weeks, Thea and Brielle worked in careful secrecy. They compiled photographs. Sterling and Celeste at restaurants during the marriage, walking into her apartment building, vacation photos that Celeste had posted and hastily deleted from social media. They gathered bank records, wire transfers to Celeste's consulting company, including one sent 3 days after the wedding. They found hotel receipts, flight bookings, a paper trail that painted an unmistakable picture. Each piece of evidence Thea filed away felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Not for revenge, for clarity. And during those same 2 weeks, something else happened. Dante Reyes asked Thea to coffee. They met at a small place in Logan Square, sat by the window as afternoon light slanted across their table, talked for 3 hours, about art and family, and the stories that shape us. "Can I ask what happened?" Dante said carefully. "With your marriage? I saw the announcement in the Tribune last year." And then silence. Thea looked into her cappuccino. "He loved someone else. Married me anyway because it made business sense. Lasted 3 months before he decided honesty was more important than vows." Dante was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that." "No," she agreed. "There isn't. Are you okay?" She looked up at him, at this man who barely knew her but whose eyes held genuine concern. "I'm getting there," he smiled. "Good, because anyone who can turn textile waste into high fashion while teaching kids about economic empowerment deserves to be more than okay." They saw each other again, and again. Long walks along the 606 trail, a disaster of a cooking date where they burned pasta and ordered pizza instead. A Sunday afternoon at the Art Institute where Dante explained the stories behind the murals he loved. He didn't push, didn't ask for more than she could give, just showed up, with coffee and conversation and a steadiness that felt like solid ground after months of quicksand. One evening, a week before the gala, they sat on a bench overlooking the lake. Sunset turned the water molten. "Can I tell you something?" Thea said quietly. "Anything. I'm about to do something that's going to be very public and probably very messy. And if you'd rather step back before that happens, I would understand." Dante turned to look at her. "What are you going to do?" She told him. All of it. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Warm. Genuine. God, he has no idea what's about to hit him, does he? "Should I not?" "Are you kidding?" Dante took her hand. "Thea, he lied to you. Used you. Abandoned you. You're not doing anything wrong by telling the truth. It feels like revenge." "No." Dante squeezed her hand gently. "Revenge is about hurting someone. Truth is about freeing yourself. There's a difference." She looked down at their joined hands. "You barely know me," she said. "Why are you even here?" "Because in the short time I've known you, I've seen more real courage and kindness than I've seen in people I've known for years." His voice was steady. "Because you show up for teenagers in neighborhoods most people ignore. Because you're brilliant and funny and you notice things. The way light hits fabric. The way people's faces change when they feel seen." He paused. "And because when I'm with you, everything else makes sense." Thea's eyes filled. "I'm not ready for—" "I know, and that's okay. I'm not asking you for anything except permission to keep showing up." She leaned her head against his shoulder. Watched the sun sink into the lake. For the first time in 6 months, the future felt like something other than wreckage. "Okay," she whispered. "Keep showing up. Deal." The night before the gala, Thea stood in her apartment. The white suit she'd designed specifically for tomorrow hung on her closet door. Emerald green, silk, sharp lines, elegant armor. Brielle sat on the couch, laptop open, the presentation cued and ready. "Last chance to back out," Brielle said. Thea looked at the suit, at her reflection in the window, at the city glowing beyond the glass. "I'm not backing out," she said. "Then let's go make some history." The morning of the gala arrived with crystalline clarity. Thea woke before dawn. Couldn't sleep. Her mind too active, too focused on what was coming. She went for a run along the lakefront trail. 5 miles, then 6, then 7, pushing until her muscles burned and her thoughts cleared. When she returned to her apartment, Dante was there. He'd let himself in with the key she'd given him the week before. Coffee was brewing. Breakfast was on the table. "You're up early," she said. "Thought you might need company," he said simply. They ate in comfortable silence. Toast and eggs and fresh fruit. Normal things. Grounding things. "You nervous?" he asked finally. Thea considered. "No. I was nervous 3 months ago. Nervous about whether he loved me. Nervous about whether I was enough. Nervous about saving something that was already dead." She met Dante's eyes. "Today I'm just clear." He reached across the table, took her hand. "You're the bravest person I know. I'm just tired of being silent." That's what brave looks like. At noon, Brielle arrived. She brought makeup, hair tools, the energy of someone preparing for battle. "This is it," Brielle said. "You ready?" Thea looked at the emerald suit hanging on the door. Born ready. They spent 2 hours getting ready, not because it took that long, but because the ritual mattered. Each step a meditation, a preparation. Brielle did Thea's makeup, subtle but striking. Eyes that could hold a room, lips that meant business, hair swept back. Clean, elegant, nothing to hide behind. When Thea finally put on the suit, she looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was different from the bride who'd stood in a wedding gown 6 months ago. Harder, wiser, unbreakable. "You look powerful," Brielle said quietly. I feel powerful. At 4 o'clock, they loaded the presentation onto a small remote. Triple-checked every file, every photo, every timestamp. The evidence was irrefutable. At 5 o'clock, Dante arrived to drive them. You don't have to do this, he said to Thea. You know that, right? You could just take the settlement and walk away. Build your life. Let him fade into irrelevance. Thea shook her head. If I walk away quietly, he learns nothing. The next woman he marries becomes me. The next family he disappoints becomes mine. She looked at Dante. This isn't about punishment. It's about accountability. Then I'm with you. They arrived at the Four Seasons at 6:15, early enough to avoid the main crowd. Late enough that setup was complete. The ballroom was already glittering. Chandeliers casting prismatic light, tables draped in white and gold, a stage at the front with massive screens on either side. The banner behind the podium proclaimed in elegant script, Visionary Leadership in Sustainable Technology. Thea stared at it, let out a long breath. Brielle squeezed her hand. You sure? Positive. They waited in the hallway, watching through the doors as guests began to arrive. Chicago's elite in designer gowns and custom tuxedos, venture capitalists, tech moguls, politicians, society columnists, everyone who mattered in this city's particular version of power. Sterling arrived at 6:45, with Celeste on his arm. She looked stunning in a champagne-colored gown. He looked every inch the celebrated CEO. They posed for photos, smiled for cameras. The perfect couple. Thea watched without emotion. Just observation, clinical, clear. That could have been me, she thought. Smiling for cameras, playing the role, living the lie. Thank God it's not. At 7 o'clock, the program began. A host took the stage, welcomed the guests, made jokes about Chicago weather and tech innovation. The first award was presented, Community Impact. Some nonprofit executive Thea didn't recognize. The second award, Innovation in Sustainable Design, a woman from a green architecture firm. Then the host announced the main event. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. This year's Visionary Leadership Award goes to a man who has revolutionized sustainable energy storage, who has brought ethics and innovation together in ways that are transforming our industry. Please welcome Sterling Wentworth. The room erupted in applause. Sterling stood, kissed Celeste's cheek, made his way to the stage. He looked confident, comfortable, born for this moment. He took the microphone, smiled at the crowd. Thank you, he began. This is truly an honor. When I started Wentworth Tech Solutions, I had a simple vision, to prove that doing good and doing well don't have to be in conflict. Applause rippled through the room. That sustainability isn't just a buzzword. It's a business model. It's a moral imperative. It's the future we're building together. More applause. People nodding. Agreements spreading like warmth. And I couldn't have done any of this without the support of this incredible community. The investors who believed in the vision. The partners who took risks with us. The team that shows up every day to do the hard work. He paused. Let the moment breathe. Because at the end of the day, this work is about integrity. It's about responsibility. It's about leadership that doesn't just talk about values, but lives them. The lights flickered. Sterling paused, glanced up, confused. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The massive screens behind him glowed bright white. Sterling turned, looked at the screens, looked at the tech booth. The first image appeared. Sterling and Celeste, at a Paris cafe, his hand tucking hair behind her ear. Both smiling, intimate. The date stamp in the corner, 4 weeks after his wedding to Thea. The ballroom erupted in gasps. Sterling's face drained of color. What? He started. Another image appeared. Sterling and Celeste holding hands along the riverwalk. Chicago skyline unmistakable behind them. Date stamp. 6 weeks into the marriage. Turn it off, Sterling said. Voice sharp. Directed at the tech booth. No one moved. From the back of the ballroom, a figure in emerald green began walking down the center aisle. Thea. Every head turned. Cameras swiveled. The clicking of her heels against marble was the only sound in the room. She walked with purpose, with clarity, with the calm of someone who had nothing left to lose. Sterling saw her. Froze. "Thea," he said into the microphone, voice somewhere between warning and disbelief. "This isn't the place?" She finished for him. Her voice carried without amplification. "You're right. The place for honesty was our wedding day." She stopped 15 feet from the stage. "But since you chose deception then, I'm choosing truth now." The screens continued cycling. More photos. Sterling and Celeste at restaurants, walking into her apartment building. A vacation photo. Beach. Sunset. Romance. Each one time-stamped. Each one during the marriage. The audience sat in stunned silence. 3 months, Thea said, her voice steady. "That's how long our marriage lasted. Not because I wasn't committed. Not because I didn't try." She looked directly at Sterling. "But because the man you're honoring tonight valued his own comfort over basic human decency." A reporter in the back stood. Camera raised. "Mr. Wentworth, is this true?" Sterling gripped the podium. "This is a private matter." "I won't be private," Thea interrupted. "You made it public when you married me for my family's connections. When you used our marriage to secure investor confidence. When you stood here tonight accepting awards for integrity while lying to an entire city." The screens changed again. Bank records. Wire transfers to Celeste Moreau Consulting. Amounts. Dates. 3 days after the wedding. 2 weeks after. Throughout the marriage. An investor stood. "You used company funds?" Sterling's mouth opened. Closed. No words came. Celeste rose from her seat. Face pale. She looked at Sterling. Then at the screens. Then back at him. "You told me the marriage was over," she said. Voice shaking. "You said she knew. That you'd both agreed to separate but were keeping up appearances for—" "He lied," Thea said. "Not unkindly. To both of us." The screens changed again. Text messages. Blurred enough to protect privacy, but clear enough to show the intimacy, the frequency, the timeline. All during the marriage. Thea took a step closer to the stage. "I spent 3 months wondering what I'd done wrong," she said softly, but her voice carried to every corner of the room. Lying awake trying to figure out why I wasn't enough. Blaming myself for the failure of a marriage that was never real to begin with. She looked at the audience now. At all of them. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because silence protects liars. And I'm done being silent. Can we just take a moment? If you're feeling the power of this moment, if you believe truth should always win over lies, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this is what Mr. Hearthline's stories is all about. Real courage, real transformation. Comment where you're watching from, or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline." Because we're about to witness the full reckoning. The room erupted. Reporters rushing toward the stage. Questions flying. Cameras flashing like a lightning storm. Sterling stood frozen at the podium. Investors pulling out phones. Making calls, the sound of empires crumbling in real time. Board members huddled in urgent conversation, legal counsel whispering frantically. Celeste had already disappeared through a side exit. Thea turned to leave, but paused, turned back. "Oh, and one more thing," she said. The room quieted slightly, everyone straining to hear. "That award you're receiving, visionary leadership?" She smiled. Small, sharp. "You might want to return it. Because a true visionary sees consequences. You never look past your own wants long enough to see the destruction you were causing." She walked toward the exit, Brielle falling into step beside her. Behind them, chaos consumed the ballroom. Sterling's voice, desperate now. "This is a misunderstanding. If we could just—" But no one was listening. A board member reached the stage. "Mr. Wentworth, we need to talk. Now." An investor blocked his path. "I want my money back." Reporters circled like sharks scenting blood. "Mr. Wentworth, how long was the affair? Did your board know? What do you say to your shareholders?" Through the glass doors, Thea could hear it all unraveling. She pushed through into the hallway. Cool, quiet, separate from the chaos. Dante waited by the exit, exactly where he'd said he'd be. He took one look at her face and opened his arms. Thea stepped into them. "I did it," she whispered. "I know. I'm so proud of you. Why am I shaking?" "Because you're brave, not bulletproof." He kissed the top of her head. "Come on. Let's get out of here." They walked out of the Four Seasons into the Chicago night. Behind them, camera flashes still lit up the windows. The sound of raised voices. The beginning of Sterling Wentworth's very public fall. In the car, Thea looked back one last time. The building glowed against the night sky, beautiful, expensive, full of people who measured worth in dollars and influence. She'd once wanted to belong in that world. Now she was grateful to be free of it. Brielle turned from the front seat. "How do you feel?" Thea considered the question. "Free," she said finally. "For the first time in 6 months, I feel free." Dante drove them to a quiet diner on the south side. Nothing fancy, just booths and coffee and pie. They sat in a corner, away from windows, away from cameras, ordered food they barely touched, talked about everything except what had just happened. Dante told a story about a student who'd painted a mural without permission, and then convinced the building owner it added property value. Brielle talked about her sister's new baby. Normal things, grounding things. Around midnight, Thea's phone started buzzing, continuously, messages flooding in. She glanced at it once, saw the news alerts, the headlines already forming. Chicago billionaire exposed by wife at charity gala. Wentworth Foundation scandal. Affair timeline revealed. Tech CEO's 3-month marriage. The truth comes out. She turned the phone face down. "I'll deal with tomorrow," she said. "Smart," Dante said. They stayed at the diner until 2 in the morning, until the adrenaline faded and exhaustion set in. Dante drove Thea home, walked her to her door. "You going to be okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she smiled. Tired, but genuine. "I really am. Call me if you need anything." "I will." He kissed her forehead. Soft, steady, then left. Inside her apartment, Thea changed out of the emerald suit, hung it carefully in her closet. She'd never wear it again, but she'd keep it, a reminder of the night she stopped being silent. She washed her face, the makeup coming away in dark smudges, revealing the woman underneath. She looked different, not just tired, changed, stronger, clearer, free. She climbed into bed, expected to lie awake replaying everything. Instead, she fell asleep immediately, deeply, the sleep of someone who'd finally put down a weight they'd been carrying too long. Across the city, Sterling Wentworth sat in his penthouse, alone, phone ringing continuously with calls he couldn't answer. His lawyer, his publicist, board members, investors, all demanding explanations he didn't have. The television played news coverage on mute, his face on every channel, the photos, the timeline, the public unraveling. He'd built an empire on image and influence, watched it collapse in a single evening. The morning after the gala, Chicago woke to chaos. Every major outlet led with a story. Chicago Tribune, CEO exposed, marriage scandal rocks tech world. Sun Times, 3 months and out, billionaire's wife reveals affair. National outlets picked it up by noon. CNN, tech industry faces reckoning after gala expose. Forbes, when corporate values meet personal choices. The Sterling Wentworth scandal. Clips from the gala flooded social media. Thea in her emerald suit, her voice calm and unwavering. The photos appearing on screen behind Sterling. Millions watched, shared, commented. The hashtag Truth at the Gala trended for 3 days. By noon, reporters gathered outside Armstrong Group headquarters. Board members arrived one by one, faces grim, eyes avoiding cameras. Inside, an emergency meeting unfolded. Sterling sat at the end of the conference table, the seat he'd occupied for 8 years. His usual confidence replaced by exhaustion. The room that had once bent to his authority now regarded him like a liability. One board member cleared his throat. "We can't move forward with this scandal attached to the company. The shareholders are panicking." Another spoke. "The foundation sponsors have withdrawn, all of them. 3 major contracts are under review. Our stock dropped 18% overnight," someone added. Sterling rubbed his temples. "I built this company from the ground up. You all know that." "You built it with other people's trust," a voice interrupted. "And now you've lost it." The chairman slid a document across the table. "Effective immediately, the board is removing you as CEO. We're announcing it as voluntary resignation, but make no mistake, you're out." For a long moment, Sterling didn't move. His eyes traced the words on the paper. Official. Sterile. Irreversible. He signed without protest. The sound of the pen scratching paper felt louder than anything else in the room. By evening, his name was removed from the company website. His portrait in the headquarters lobby, quietly, taken down. His parking space reassigned. 8 years erased in 8 hours. Celeste vanished from public sight within days. Tabloids speculated she'd left the country. Some claimed she'd been cut off from his finances. Sterling neither confirmed nor denied it. His phone, once buzzing constantly with opportunities and invitations, went silent. Friends who'd fought for his attention no longer returned calls. Social events he'd been central to suddenly happened without him. A week later, he sat alone in his penthouse, curtains drawn, television flickering. News anchors dissected his fall from grace. Old clips of him speaking about honor in business replayed beside headlines of betrayal. His glass of scotch sat untouched. His tie hung loose around his neck. He replayed Thea's words. Integrity doesn't hide behind foundations or speeches. It stands where it's uncomfortable, in the light. The voice that had once filled him with anger now echoed with clarity. He turned off the television, the screen going dark, leaving only his reflection. For the first time, he saw himself not as the man who'd been caught, but as the man who destroyed himself long before that night. Outside, city lights flickered in the distance. The same city he'd once ruled from boardrooms and balconies. Now it moved on without him. Meanwhile, across town, in a modest but elegant office overlooking the river, Thea signed her divorce papers. Her attorney Victoria closed the folder quietly. It's finalized. Thea exhaled, steady and calm. No tears, no hesitation, just peace. The settlement was substantial. Between marital assets and business shares, $32 million. More than enough to walk away comfortable for life. But comfort wasn't what she wanted. Purpose was. What will you do with it? Victoria asked. Change lives, Thea said simply. Within weeks, she began channeling the funds into the Chicago Renewal Initiative. Empty lots in forgotten neighborhoods became affordable housing. Abandoned factories became training centers for young workers learning sustainable manufacturing. Her company, Callaway Collective, grew again. This time, not just as a business, but as a movement. Local papers called her the woman who rebuilt Chicago's spirit. Interview requests poured in. But she kept her answers measured, focused on the work, not the scandal. She never mentioned Sterling's name. Her silence became its own kind of power. Brielle remained by her side, managing communications, occasionally reminding her to rest. One afternoon, as they reviewed project plans together, Brielle said softly, You know, people keep waiting for you to speak about what happened. Thea looked up from her desk. They'll keep waiting. My work speaks louder. Brielle smiled. You've changed, Thea. There's something unshakable about you now. Thea returned the smile. When you lose everything, you learn what can't be taken. She spent her days on construction sites, her evenings in community meetings. Children from the neighborhood she helped often ran up to hug her. Elderly residents called her the woman who brought light back. One morning, she visited a nearly finished building. Sunlight pouring through new windows, fresh paint drying on walls. She walked through slowly, fingertips brushing brick. Every sound, hammers, laughter, footsteps, reminded her of what could be built from brokenness. Later, standing by the river, she watched cranes move across the skyline and thought of how far she had come. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Sterling Wentworth steps down from Wentworth Tech Solutions board. She stared at it for a moment, then locked the screen. No reaction, no satisfaction, just quiet understanding. She turned her gaze back to the water. Chicago's skyline shimmered, vibrant, alive, reborn, just like her. 3 months after the gala, Thea's world had transformed completely. The scandal had faded from front-page news, replaced by the next crisis, the next controversy, the cycle of outrage that defined modern media. But the consequences remained. For Sterling, they were devastating. For Thea, they were liberating. She threw herself into work, but not the desperate, grief-stricken work of the early days after he left. This was different, purposeful, joyful even. The Chicago Renewal Initiative became her legacy in the making. She purchased an entire block in Englewood. 6 abandoned buildings, boarded windows, crumbling facades, structures that had stood empty for over a decade. Most developers would have torn them down, started fresh. Thea saw their bones, their history, their potential. She hired local contractors, brought in architects who understood community, worked with residents to understand what they actually needed. Not what some downtown developer thought they needed, but what they said they needed. Affordable housing, yes, but also community spaces, a teaching kitchen, classrooms for job training, a small manufacturing facility for sustainable textiles. She visited the site daily. Hard hat, clipboard, steel-toed boots. The workers loved her. She learned their names, asked about their families, brought coffee on cold mornings. One afternoon, a foreman named Marcus approached her. "You're different from other developers we've worked for." "How so?" Thea asked. "You actually show up, and when you're here, you listen." She smiled. "That's because this isn't just business to me. This is about people." Marcus nodded slowly. "We can tell. That's why we're working so hard. We want this to succeed as much as you do." And through it all, Dante was there. Not hovering, not trying to manage or control, just present. He'd show up at the construction site with lunch. They'd sit on overturned buckets and eat tacos while discussing art and community and dreams. He introduced her to other community organizers, artists, activists, people building things that mattered more than profit margins. She introduced him to her team at Callaway Collective, to Brielle, to her parents. Her mother took one look at Dante and pulled Thea aside. "This one is different." "I know," Thea said. "He looks at you like you hung the moon. But more than that, he looks at you like he actually sees you." Thea's eyes filled. "I know." Her father was more reserved, as always. But over dinner one night, he asked Dante about his work. Dante talked about the community arts program, about kids who'd found their voice through painting, through sculpture, through seeing that their stories mattered. "That's important work," her father said finally. Real work. Coming from her father, that was high praise. One Saturday afternoon, Thea and Dante painted a mural together on the side of one of the Englewood buildings. Bright colors, geometric patterns, faces of community members past and present. Thea had never painted a mural before. Dante guided her hand, showed her how to use the spray can, how to layer colors. "You're a natural," he said. "I have a good teacher." They worked side by side for hours. Paint on their clothes, on their hands, in Thea's hair. Kids from the neighborhood came to watch, asked questions, eventually joined in. By sunset, the wall was transformed, a story told in color and shape, a declaration that this community mattered. Thea stepped back, looked at what they'd created together. "This is what I want my life to be," she said quietly, "creating beautiful things that matter, with people who see me." Dante took her hand, his fingers intertwined with hers. "Then let's build that life." 4 months after the gala, Thea received an unexpected call. "Miss Callaway, this is Jerome Patterson from the Chicago Community Foundation." Thea shifted the phone to her other ear. "Yes, Mr. Patterson. How can I help you?" "Actually, we'd like to help you. We've been following your work in Englewood, the Renewal Project. It's exactly the kind of community-centered development we want to support. I appreciate that. We'd like to offer you a $2 million grant. No strings attached, just support for the vision you're already executing." Thea sat down. $2 million? Your approach is different. You're not displacing people. You're empowering them. That's rare, and it's exactly what Chicago needs. After the call ended, Thea sat in stunned silence. Then she called Dante. "We just got $2 million for the project," she said. He whooped so loudly she had to pull the phone away from her ear. "That's incredible. We need to celebrate." They met at their favorite spot, the bench overlooking the lake where he'd first told her he supported her plan to expose Sterling. The same bench where so much had shifted between them. Dante brought champagne, plastic cups. They toasted under the stars. "To truth," he said. "To transformation," she added. "To us." They clinked cups, drank, sat in comfortable silence. "Can I ask you something?" Dante said. "Anything." "Are you happy?" Thea considered the question, really considered it. 6 months ago, I thought my life was ending. I thought Sterling leaving meant I'd failed, that I wasn't enough. And now I know he didn't leave because I wasn't enough. He left because he wasn't capable of seeing my value. She looked at Dante. And that says everything about him and nothing about me. Dante smiled, took her hand. You're extraordinary. You know that? I'm learning it. Meanwhile, across the city, Sterling's world continued to crumble. The board removal was just the beginning. Investors who'd once fought to be part of Wentworth Tech Solutions now fought to get out. Major contracts were canceled, citing ethics clauses Sterling had once championed. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. His legal team advised bankruptcy protection. The company he'd built over 8 years couldn't survive the scandal. Sterling refused at first, convinced he could salvage it, convinced his reputation could recover. But reputation, once shattered, doesn't easily mend, especially not in the age of internet memory. 6 months after the gala, Wentworth Tech Solutions officially filed for bankruptcy protection. The news made headlines again, those smaller ones this time. Page 3 instead of page 1. Sterling Wentworth, once worth an estimated $200 million, was now drowning in debt. His penthouse went on the market. His car collection sold at auction. The life he'd built on image and influence dissolved like sand through fingers. He moved to a modest apartment in a neighborhood he'd never noticed before, rode the train instead of being chauffeured, bought his own groceries. The humiliation was complete. But somewhere in the wreckage, something else began. Barely, painfully, self-awareness. He started seeing a therapist, Dr. Caroline Webb, a woman in her 60s who didn't care about his former status. You made choices, she said during their first session. Now you're living with consequences. The question is, what are you going to learn? Sterling had never been asked to learn from failure, only to avoid it. The sessions were brutal, honest, necessary. He talked about his father's expectations, about growing up in a family where image mattered more than integrity, where results justified methods. He talked about Celeste, about convincing himself that love justified lies. And he talked about Thea, about the woman he'd used as a prop in his carefully constructed life. I told myself it was a business arrangement, he said one session, that she knew what it was, that she'd be fine. But she wasn't fine, Dr. Webb said. You hurt her. I destroyed her. No. Dr. Webb's voice was firm. You hurt her. She rebuilt herself. There's a difference. You don't get to take credit for her strength. Sterling sat with that, the truth of it sharp and uncomfortable. What do I do now? He asked. You do the work of becoming someone who deserves a second chance at basic decency, whether you get it or not. 6 months after the gala became 8 months, then 10. Thea's project in Englewood was nearly complete. The buildings had been transformed, brick facades restored, windows replaced, interiors reconfigured into beautiful functional spaces, 20 units of affordable housing, a community center with classrooms and meeting spaces, a commercial kitchen for culinary training, a small manufacturing facility where local women learn to create sustainable textiles. The Callaway Center, named not for ego, but for legacy, for her grandmother who'd taught her that beautiful things could be made with care and patience. The ribbon cutting was scheduled for a Saturday in May. Thea stood outside the main building the night before, alone, just looking. String lights were already hung, tables set up for the celebration, flowers delivered, everything ready. Brielle found her there, knew somehow that she'd be there. You did it, Brielle said softly. We did it. Thea turned to her best friend. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They stood together in the gathering dusk, watching light fade from the Chicago sky. You know what the best part is? Thea said. What? Sterling has no part in this. This isn't revenge. This isn't about him at all. This is just me, building something that matters. That's the ultimate freedom, Brielle said. The ribbon cutting drew a modest crowd, maybe 200 people, local officials, community members, young designers whose work would fill the gallery space, the construction crew who'd built it. No major press, no society columnists, just people who cared about what the space represented. Opportunity, dignity, creation. Thea stood at a makeshift podium, Dante beside her, her parents in the front row. She'd prepared remarks, But standing there, looking at the faces gathered, she set the notes aside. "A year ago, my life fell apart," she began, her voice steady. "I thought I'd lost everything. My marriage, my sense of self, my faith in love." The crowd was quiet, attentive. "But what I actually lost was an illusion, and what I gained was clarity." She gestured to the building behind her. "This center isn't about me. It's about all of us, about what we can build when we choose community over competition, when we invest in people instead of just profit." Applause rippled through the crowd. These buildings were empty for over a decade. People saw blight. I saw potential, just like I had to learn to see my own potential after someone told me I wasn't enough. Her voice caught slightly. But she pushed through. We all have empty spaces in our lives, broken places, things we think can't be fixed. But with care and commitment and community, we can transform anything. When she cut the ribbon, the applause was genuine, warm. People toured the space, admired the details, the restored woodwork, the bright classrooms, the gallery already filled with local art. Children ran through the halls, their laughter echoing. Elderly residents sat in the new community room, already making plans for book clubs and meetings. This is what healing looks like, Thea thought. Not a return to what was, but the creation of something new. That evening, as the crowd dispersed and the sun set over the buildings, Dante pulled her aside. "Can we take a walk?" he asked. They walked through the neighborhood, past murals Dante's students had painted, past gardens community members had planted, past the evidence of a neighborhood refusing to die. They ended up back at the bench by the lake. Their spot. The water was calm, the sky turning from gold to purple to deep blue. Dante turned to face her. "Thea," he said, then stopped. Started again. She waited, patient. "A year ago, you walked into my community center to teach a workshop. You were sad, trying to hide it but not quite managing. I saw someone fighting to remember who they were." Thea's eyes filled. "And over these months, I've watched you not just remember, but become someone stronger than you were, someone who turned pain into purpose." He reached for her hand. "I love you, not because you recovered or healed or passed everything, but because of who you are in every moment. The woman who shows up, who builds, who sees people." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Marry me, not for connections or image or business. Marry me because I want to spend my life building beautiful things with you. Because when I'm with you, I'm my best self. Because I can't imagine my future without you in it." Thea's tears spilled over. "Dante," she whispered, "I know marriage means something different to you now. I know the last time someone asked, it ended in pain. But I'm not him. I will never be him. And if you give me the chance, I'll spend every day proving that love can be exactly what you deserved the first time." She looked at this man, this beautiful, genuine, steady man, who'd shown up consistently, who'd never lied, who'd loved her through transformation without trying to control it. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes." She laughed through tears. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ring was simple. Gold band with a single emerald, the same shade as the suit she'd worn to the gala. "I wanted you to have something that represented your strength," Dante said as he slipped it on her finger. "Not your pain, your power. It's perfect." They sat on that bench until the stars came out, making plans in hushed voices. Small ceremony, close friends and family, at the Callaway Center, surrounded by the community they both loved. Nothing grand, nothing performative, just real. Before we continue with Thea's beautiful new chapter, I need you to do something. If this story is inspiring you, if you believe broken hearts can become beautiful beginnings, hit that like button. Subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories for more journeys of courage and transformation. And comment where you're watching from. Let's build a community right here. Now, let me show you what happened next. The engagement sparked joy in everyone who knew them. Brielle cried. "Happy tears for once. About damn time," she said, hugging them both. Thea's mother held her daughter's face in her hands. "This is what love looks like. I'm so happy for you." Her father shook Dante's hand. "Take care of her. Always," Dante promised. The wedding was planned for 6 months out. Small, intimate, perfect. But life kept moving in the meantime. Callaway Collective expanded to 3 new cities: Detroit, Atlanta, Portland, each one following the same model. Sustainable fashion with community impact. The Callaway Center filled with life. Classes every evening. Community meetings on weekends. The commercial kitchen training its third cohort of culinary students. Thea split her time between the various projects, but always made time for Dante. For dinners and walks and quiet evenings at home. They moved in together. A loft in West Loop with exposed brick and tall windows. Nothing like Sterling's sterile penthouse. The space was warm, colorful, lived in. Plants everywhere, art on the walls, a kitchen they actually used. Home. 1 year after the gala, Thea woke to her alarm, reached for her phone, saw the date. 1 year. Dante stirred beside her. You okay? Yeah. She turned to face him. Just thinking. 1 year ago, my life was completely different. Better or worse? So much better. She kissed him. Than I ever imagined possible. They spent the day at the Callaway Center. Dante taught a painting class, while Thea met with residents about programming ideas. That evening, they cooked dinner together. Pasta and wine and easy conversation. No mention of Sterling. No dwelling on the past. Just presence. But across the city, Sterling was thinking of the date too. 1 year since his world collapsed. 1 year of therapy and humiliation and forced introspection. He'd gotten a job. Not as a CEO, as a consultant for a small renewable energy startup, advising on battery technology. The pay was a fraction of what he'd once made, but it was honest work. He rode the train to work, packed his own lunch, lived modestly. The penthouse was gone. The cars, the status, all of it. What remained was just him, without the armor of wealth and image. He'd seen photos of Thea's work, the Callaway Center opening, her expanding business, awards she'd won for community impact. He'd seen the engagement announcement, a small piece in the Tribune, simple, joyful. She looked happy. He was glad, and sad, and ashamed. Dr. Webb had asked him if he wanted to reach out, to apologize. What would that accomplish? He'd asked. Maybe nothing for her, but maybe something for you. Accountability is part of healing. Sterling had drafted the email a dozen times, deleted it 11. The 12th time, he sent it. 2 years after the gala, everything came full circle. It was a Saturday in June. Perfect weather. Clear sky. Gentle breeze. The Callaway Center had been transformed for the wedding. String lights across the main gallery. Tables with sustainable flowers and hand-dyed linens. A jazz trio setting up in the corner. 40 guests. No more. People who actually knew and loved them. Thea stood in a small room off the main space, wearing a dress she designed herself. Simple, elegant, cream-colored silk with delicate embroidery. Nothing like her first wedding gown. That had been for show. This was for her. Brielle helped with the final details. Smoothing fabric, adjusting flowers in Thea's hair. How do you feel? Brielle asked. Ready. Thea smiled. Really? Truly ready. Her mother knocked softly, entered, stopped when she saw her daughter. Oh, sweetheart, you're radiant. I'm happy, Mom. Thea took her mother's hands. For real this time. Her father appeared, distinguished as always, but with tears in his eyes. Your grandmother would have loved this, he said quietly. The real thing, not the performance. I know, Dad. Are you happy? She looked at her reflection one last time. At the woman she'd become through fire and transformation. I really, really am. The ceremony was held in the main gallery, surrounded by art created by community members, by the proof of what could be built from nothing. Dante stood at the front, his best friend beside him, eyes locked on the doorway. When Thea appeared on her father's arm, his face transformed. Pure joy. She walked toward him, not nervous, not uncertain, just clear. This was right. This was real. This was love. The officiant was a community elder, a woman who'd watched the neighborhood transform, who understood what this moment meant. We gather today, she began, not to join two strangers in arrangement, but to celebrate two people who've chosen each other freely, fully, honestly. Thea and Dante had written their own vows. Dante went first. Thea, you walked into my life when I wasn't looking for anyone. But you changed everything. You showed me what it means to turn pain into purpose, to build beauty from brokenness, to show up even when it's hard. His voice was steady, full. I promise to see you every day, in every moment, to choose you not because it's easy, but because you're worth choosing, to build our life together brick by brick, to never let you doubt your value. Tears streamed down Thea's face, but she was smiling. Her turn. Dante, I came to you broken, trying to pretend I was whole. You never asked me to be anything other than where I was. You showed me that love isn't about performance. It's about presence. She took a breath. I promise to show up for you the way you've shown up for me, to build our life with the same care and intention we bring to our work, to never let fear keep me from honesty, to choose you every day, not because I have to, because I want to. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me, and more importantly by the love witnessed here today, I pronounce you married. You may kiss. Dante pulled Thea close, kissed her deeply, thoroughly, a kiss that meant forever. The small gathering erupted in applause. They turned to face their community, hands clasped, smiles wide. This was what a wedding was supposed to be. The reception was joyful, dancing and laughter and toasts. Brielle's toast made everyone cry. I watched my best friend go through hell, and I watched her rebuild herself into someone even more beautiful than before. Dante, you're getting an extraordinary woman. Take care of her. Always, Dante said again. Thea's father's toast was simple. To my daughter, who taught me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about choosing to stand again. They danced under string lights, ate food from neighborhood restaurants, celebrated surrounded by people who'd witnessed their journey. Around midnight, Thea stepped outside for air. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance. The same view she'd seen from so many places. From Sterling's penthouse, feeling trapped. From her own apartment, learning to breathe. From this center, watching herself become. Dante joined her, loosened his tie. Hiding from your own party, he teased. Just taking a moment. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking? How different my life looks from what I imagined. Better or worse? She turned in his arms. So much better than I ever let myself dream. Somewhere in the city, Sterling Wentworth might have been sitting in his modest apartment. Might have been thinking about this day if he'd seen the announcement. But it didn't matter. He was a footnote now. A chapter that had ended so something better could begin. Thea kissed her husband. Her real husband. The one who'd chosen her every day. Ready to go home, Mrs. Reyes? Dante murmured. She smiled. Ready. 1 week after the wedding, Thea was in her office at Callaway Collective when an email arrived. From Sterling Wentworth. Subject line, blank. She stared at it for a long moment, finger hovering over delete, but curiosity won. She opened it. Thea, I know I have no right to reach out. I know an apology is worthless at this point, but I've been working with a therapist for the past 1.5 years, trying to understand why I made the choices I did. And I wanted you to know, none of it was your fault. You were everything a partner should be. Honest, committed, genuine. I was the one who couldn't see value in something real because I was too busy chasing what felt familiar. I lost everything. The company, the reputation, most of my relationships. I'm rebuilding slowly, working a regular job, trying to be someone who deserves a second chance at basic decency. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to ask. But I needed you to know, I'm sorry for all of it. I saw the announcement of your wedding. I'm glad you found someone who sees your worth. I hope you found the happiness I was too broken to give you. I won't contact you again. This isn't about me needing closure from you. It's about me taking accountability for the pain I caused. I'm sorry, Thea. Truly. Sterling. She read it twice. Let the words settle. Felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no lingering pain. Just distance. Brielle called an hour later. Did you see it? The email? Yeah. Are you going to respond? No. No? He doesn't need my forgiveness to heal. And I don't need to give it to be free. We're just done. Brielle was quiet for a moment. When did you get this wise? Thea smiled. When I stopped measuring my worth by someone else's inability to see it. She closed the laptop. returned to the design she'd been working on. A new collection inspired by transformation, by the beauty of becoming. That weekend, Dante took her to a small gallery opening in Pilsen. One of his former students showing her first solo exhibition, mixed media pieces about immigrant identity and belonging. The work was powerful, raw, honest. Thea watched Dante talk with the young artist. The way he encouraged her, elevated her, saw her. This was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or society weddings, but showing up, seeing each other, building together. On the drive home, Dante reached over, took her hand. "You've been quiet tonight. Just thinking about how a year ago I thought my life was over, and now." She looked at him. "Now it feels like it's finally beginning." He squeezed her hand. "It is. For both of us." That night, lying in bed in their loft, Thea stared at the ceiling. Dante's breathing had already evened out, sleep coming easy for him. She thought about the journey, the wedding to Sterling, the betrayal, the exposure, the rebuilding. Every step had felt impossible at the time. Every moment of pain had seemed endless. But here she was, on the other side, not just surviving, thriving. She'd built a business that mattered, created spaces that transformed communities, found love that was real. And Sterling? He was learning lessons she'd already mastered. That reputation without integrity is just performance. That love without honesty is just transaction. That you can't build anything lasting on a foundation of lies. She hoped he actually learned them, for the sake of whoever came next in his life. But his journey was no longer connected to hers. She'd cut that thread the night at the gala, and every day since she'd woven something new, something beautiful, something hers. She reached for Dante's hand in the darkness. He stirred slightly, squeezed back even in sleep. This was enough. More than enough. This was everything. 6 months after the wedding, Thea received news that the Callaway Center had been selected for a National Community Development Award. The ceremony was in Washington, D.C. Black tie. Politicians and nonprofit leaders and social entrepreneurs. "Are you going to go?" Brielle asked. Thea considered. "I don't know. Award ceremonies aren't really my thing. This one might be worth it. National recognition, potential for funding, connections to replicate the model in other cities." Thea agreed to go, brought Dante with her. The ceremony was held in a historic building. Elegant, formal, hundreds of people in designer gowns and tuxedos, not unlike the Wentworth Foundation Gala 2 years earlier. But everything was different now. Then, she'd been there to expose. Now, she was there to be celebrated. Then, she'd been breaking free. Now, she was fully free. When her name was called, she walked to the stage, confident, clear, powerful. She accepted the award, a beautiful glass sculpture, heavy and substantial. Her speech was brief. "This award isn't about me. It's about community, about what's possible when we invest in people instead of just projects, when we build with communities instead of for them." Applause filled the room. The Callaway Center started as a personal project, a way to transform my own pain into something purposeful. But it became so much more. It became proof that our worst moments don't define us. Our response to them does. She looked out at the audience. We all face moments that break us. Betrayals, losses, failures. The question isn't whether we'll fall. It's whether we'll choose to build something beautiful from the pieces. The applause grew louder. After the ceremony, people approached her. Investors, nonprofit leaders, city officials from other municipalities wanting to replicate the model. She exchanged cards, made connections, planted seeds. But the best moment came later, in the hotel room, just her and Dante. They sat on the bed, a ward between them. Shoes kicked off, formal clothes loosened. "How do you feel?" Dante asked. "Grateful." Thea ran her finger along the edge of the glass sculpture. 2 years ago, I was on a stage watching my life fall apart. Tonight, I was on a stage being celebrated for rebuilding it. You did more than rebuild. You created something entirely new. We created it. She looked at him. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They flew back to Chicago the next morning, back to their life, their work, their community. No fanfare, no parades. Just the quiet satisfaction of purpose lived. Thea returned to the Callaway Center on Monday, back to meetings and site visits and design reviews. But something had shifted, settled. She'd proven to herself that she could survive the worst. And not just survive, transform. That night, she stood at the window of their loft, looking out at Chicago, the city that had witnessed her wedding, her betrayal, her exposure, her rebuilding. Every brick, every street, every light held a memory. But she was no longer defined by those memories. She was defined by what she'd built in spite of them. Dante came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything. Nothing. How far I've come." "We've come." She leaned back against him. "Yeah, we." They stood there for a long time, watching the city breathe. Somewhere out there, Sterling was living his smaller life, working his regular job, trying to become someone who deserved redemption. She hoped he found it, genuinely, not because she'd forgiven him, but because she'd moved so far past him that his healing or lack thereof no longer affected her. She'd built a life so full, so meaningful, so joyful, that there was no room left for old pain. That was freedom, not the absence of memory, but the presence of purpose so strong that memory lost its power. "Listen, we're almost at the end of this incredible journey, but before we finish, I need you to understand something important. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that your lowest moment doesn't have to be your final chapter, do 3 things right now. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, and comment where you're watching from, or just say, 'I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline,' because stories like Thea's need to be shared. Now let me bring this home. 3 years after the gala, Thea sat in a podcast studio. The host was a woman named Jordan. Popular podcast about women in business and social entrepreneurship. "Tell me about the turning point," Jordan said. "When did you decide to stop being a victim and start being a victor?" Thea considered the question carefully. "I don't think it was one moment. It was a series of choices. Every morning I chose to get out of bed. Every day I chose to work instead of wallow. Every time I felt like giving up, I chose to build something instead. But there had to be a catalyst. The moment you decided enough was enough." "The gala," Thea said, "exposing Sterling publicly. That was the moment I stopped letting shame keep me silent." "Do you regret it? Going public the way you did?" "No." Thea's answer was immediate. Not because revenge felt good. It didn't. But because speaking the truth, even when it's painful, is how we stop letting lies define us. Jordan leaned forward. "What would you say to someone going through something similar right now? Someone who's been betrayed or abandoned?" Thea looked directly at the camera. "I'd say this. Your pain is real. Your grief is valid. Don't let anyone rush you through it." She paused. "But also don't let it become your identity. You are not what happened to you. You're what you choose to build from it." "What about forgiveness? Should they forgive the person who hurt them?" "Forgiveness is personal. I haven't forgiven Sterling. Maybe I never will. But I've released him. There's a difference." "Explain that." "Forgiveness would mean saying what he did was okay. Release means saying what he did no longer has power over me. I don't need him to apologize or change or suffer for me to move forward. My healing isn't dependent on his journey." That's powerful. It's freedom. The podcast released 2 weeks later. Within days, it had over 1 million downloads. Thea's inbox flooded with messages. Women sharing their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding, thanking her for being honest, for showing that life continues after devastation. She read every single one, responded to as many as she could. One message stood out, from a woman named Patricia, 56 years old. Husband of 30 years had left her for someone younger. "I thought my life was over," Patricia wrote. "But your story showed me it's just beginning differently than I planned. Thank you for your courage." Thea wrote back immediately. "Your story isn't over. It's just entering a new chapter, and you get to write it however you want. Build something beautiful. You deserve it." That exchange reminded Thea why her story mattered. Not for fame or recognition, but for the women still in the darkness, still wondering if they'd survive. She had survived. More than that, she'd thrived. And if her story could light the way for even one person, then every painful step had been worth it. 4 years after the gala, Thea and Dante bought a house. Not a penthouse, not a showpiece. A real home in a real neighborhood, Pilsen, where Dante had grown up, where they'd first met. 3 bedrooms, small yard, front porch, nothing fancy. But it was theirs. They painted walls together, planted a garden, built bookshelves from reclaimed wood, made it home. One Sunday afternoon, they hosted a barbecue. Friends from the community, team members from Callaway Collective, young artists from Dante's programs. The yard filled with laughter and music and the smell of grilled food. Thea stood on the porch, watching. Dante was teaching someone's kid how to flip burgers. Brielle was telling an animated story to a group of women. Her parents sat in lawn chairs, looking content. This was wealth, not money, though she had enough. Not status, though her work was respected. But community, connection, love that was real. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it. But something made her open it. "Hi, Thea. This is Celeste. I know this is unexpected. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for my part in what happened. I convinced myself I was fighting for love. But I was really just helping someone lie. You deserved better. I hope you found it." Thea stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I hope you found your own peace." She didn't say she forgave her, didn't say it was okay. Just acknowledged the apology and moved on, because that's what freedom looked like. Not needing to punish, not needing to hold on, just acknowledging and releasing. She slipped the phone back in her pocket, returned to the party, to her life, to her people. Dante caught her eye across the yard, smiled that smile that still made her heart skip. She smiled back, filled with gratitude, for the journey, for the pain that had refined her, for the love that had restored her. All of it, every brutal, beautiful moment, had led here. And here was exactly where she was meant to be. 5 years after the gala, almost to the day, Thea received one final email. From Sterling. She almost didn't open it, but curiosity won again. "Thea, I know I said I wouldn't contact you again, but today marks 5 years since that night, and I wanted you to know what's happened since. I've been sober for 4 years, from alcohol and from the addiction to image and status that controlled my life. I work for a small environmental nonprofit now, teaching sustainable business practices to startups. The pay is modest, but the work is meaningful. I'm in a relationship with someone I met in therapy. We're taking it slow, building something honest. I'm not telling you this for congratulation. I'm telling you because your courage that night changed my life. You held up a mirror I'd been avoiding my whole life. And though it was humiliating, it was necessary. I destroyed you, and you rebuilt yourself into something extraordinary. I destroyed myself, and I'm still learning to rebuild. I'll never contact you again after this. But I wanted you to know the pain I caused you haunts me, and the strength you showed inspires me. Thank you for your courage. I'm sorry for my cowardice. Be well, Sterling." Thea read it once, then closed the email. Didn't respond. Didn't need to. His journey was his own now, separate from hers. She was glad he was finding healing, genuinely, but it changed nothing for her. She'd already moved on, already built a life that had nothing to do with him. She deleted the email, emptied the trash, let it go completely. Then she stood, grabbed her keys, headed to the Callaway Center where she was teaching a workshop on sustainable design to a new group of young women. This was her life now, teaching, building, creating, loving, and it was beautiful. That evening, she came home to find Dante cooking dinner. Music playing, their house filled with warmth. "How was your day?" he asked. "Good, really good." They ate together, talked about their days, made plans for the weekend. Normal, beautiful, real. After dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. Kids playing in the street, neighbors calling greetings, music drifting from open windows. "Can I tell you something?" Thea said. "Always. 5 years ago today, I stood in a ballroom and exposed the man who broke my heart. I thought that was the most important moment of my life." Dante waited, but it wasn't. The most important moments came after. Every morning I chose to keep building. Every time I chose truth over bitterness. Every moment I chose to love again, even though I was scared. She took his hand. Meeting you, marrying you, building this life. That's what mattered, not the exposure, the transformation. Dante kissed her hand. You know what I think? What? I think you're the strongest person I've ever met, and I'm honored to build this life with you. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over Chicago, the city that had witnessed everything, that held all her memories, good and bad. But Thea wasn't defined by those memories anymore. She was defined by what she'd built, who she'd become, how she'd loved, and that was more than enough. Now let me leave you with the truth that Thea learned, the truth that could change your life if you let it. People ask me if I regret the way it happened, the public confrontation, the exposure, the fall. I don't. Not because revenge felt good. It didn't. But because speaking the truth, even when it's painful, even when it's messy, is how we stop letting lies define us. Sterling's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the one I was always meant to write. I learned that love doesn't look like what we see in movies or read in fairy tales. Real love shows up. It stays. It sees you at your worst and chooses you anyway. The difference between Sterling and Dante wasn't just character. It was consciousness. Sterling loved what I represented. Dante loves who I am. I learned that sometimes the thing that breaks you becomes the thing that makes you. When Sterling left after 3 months, I thought I'd lost everything. I didn't realize I was being freed from a prison of someone else's making. And I learned that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so full of purpose and joy that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. 3 months. That's all he gave me. But from those 3 months, I built everything I never knew I needed. The Callaway Center now serves over 500 women a year, teaching skills, providing opportunities, creating pathways out of poverty. Callaway Collective has expanded to 8 cities, employing nearly 1,000 people in sustainable fashion. And I found love, real love, with someone who sees my value not as a transaction but as a truth. So if you're watching this and you're hurting, if someone made you feel small or used or disposable, know this: their failure to see your worth says nothing about your value. And your story doesn't end where they left you. It begins there. Build something beautiful from the broken pieces. That's not revenge. That's resurrection. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to build from it. Your pain is real. Your grief is valid. Feel it fully. But don't let it become your identity. Don't let someone else's inability to love you define your capacity to be loved. You are worthy. You are valuable. You are enough. And the best chapter of your life might be the one you write after everything fell apart. So stand up, brush off the dust, and start building. Build a business. Build a community. Build a life that reflects your values. Build relationships based on truth. Build love that sees you. Build something so beautiful that when you look back at what you lost, you realize you actually gained everything. That's what I did. And if I can do it, so can you. Now, before you go, I need you to do something for me. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that your lowest moment doesn't, it'd have to be your final chapter, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories, because this is what we do here. We share real stories of real courage. Stories that remind you that you're stronger than you think. Comment below where you're watching from. Or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline," because when you do that, you're not just supporting this channel. You're joining a community of people who believe in transformation, who believe in second chances, who believe that broken hearts can become beautiful beginnings. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone going through betrayal, someone rebuilding after loss, someone who needs to remember their worth, share this video with them. Because the truth is, we all have the power to turn our pain into purpose. We all have the strength to rebuild. We all deserve love that sees us, chooses us, and stays. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that the heart can break, but it can also heal stronger than before. Stay strong, stay true, and keep building your beautiful life. Until next time, remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to build from it. And what you build can be extraordinary.